to the things that are going on at Pinevale and what needs to be done there. Father, be with us and help us to always be interested in helping those that have needs that we can help fulfill. Be with us and help us to always be right in your sight. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Am I on? Okay. Y'all's auditorium is too big for me to scream. I've got to leave from here and go to camp. Anybody else going to camp this week? Yeah. So I'm not sure if preparing to take children to camp and agreeing to preach on the same Sunday was a great idea, but here I am. So, but actually this is the easy part for me. This is the part where I get to talk about what I do all day, every day. Jesus said, whenever you give your alms, letting that the left hand know what the right hand is doing, which means don't brag about it. But you're the one giving the alms, and so I'm here to brag about what you do. I'm here to talk about the things that you do for us that allow us to do the things that we do for the Lord. I tell people all the time that Pinevale is a work of the Lord. You obviously have several board members that attend here. And every member of the board for Pinevale is an active member of the Lord's church. Not just someone who shows up, they're the ones that are involved. Many of them are elders or preachers or deacons. They are involved in the work of the Lord, and so they are the ones overseeing the work that happens at Pinevale. Every employee that is employed by Pinevale is an active member of the Lord's church. Now, that makes it difficult sometimes to find the people that are willing to step up and do those things because we've narrowed our pool, but we know then when we do find that person, they're the right person because they are active in the Lord's work. In fact, that's the other part that makes it difficult. What does the congregation here want or need any more good, active members? They want or need deacons that are willing to really work and not just carry a title, and elders that are really willing to go out and be with the people and work. Well, guess what? You have to give that up and dedicate yourself to the work at Pinevale. So sometimes that's hard to find because these people are so active in the Lord's work. So we are blessed right now to have, I guess for the first time in, I'm not sure, about 5 years probably, all three houses have a full set of house parents. Of course, y'all know Miss Jenny, and you know for many years she had to take care of the house primarily by herself. There have been several times in the last 5 or 6 years that the boys' house has been short, or we call it the boys' house now. The last house built was missing house parents. So, but now we have 3 full sets of house parents, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, working for the children. That puts us in, you would think, in a unique situation of being able to increase our capacity. But instead, it seems to be just the opposite right now. Right now, our average age of children is below 10 years old. Now, what that means is that we have extra beds, but we're out of hands. Because you got to put hands on those children. So right now, we have 19 children at Pinevale. And we have anything from one that just turned 2 to one that just turned 18. So we have the full range, and which makes for another interesting mix. But it's going so well that we have decided that it is time to build that next house. And I know that's one of the reasons I'm here today is to talk a little bit about those plans and to encourage you on this. I call it a special Giving Sunday. A Sunday that what you've purposed in your heart is not only for the continual work that happens here as a result of your giving at Boonville, but also the special work that we're trying to do at Pinevale. And So I'll encourage you in that. Now, as you know from probably the last time I was here, or if you've not been here before, I'll tell you, I'm going to pause from time to time, and that's your opportunity to raise your hand or scream at me or throw something and ask a question that you might have. So, right off the bat, anything that's been burning on your mind about Pinevale? No? Okay. Now, don't be shy. Tommy said that I've got till the quarter after, which means if I run out of material, then I go into my stand-up act, and it's not much better. So, y'all don't want that. Well, I get asked this time of year a lot about camp. The kids today, they will leave, and we're actually going to Sardis for a week of camp. Y'all pray for me. Sardis is still very rustic, and it means my cabin won't have air conditioning, I'm sure. We didn't quite make it into Tony Brown's week this year. I think all those spots got taken before we could get there, so we made an alternative plan. But they will go back, and they'll go to Maywood at the end of the summer for the North Mississippi week. We do consider ourselves right now full with the 19 children because of the ages that we have. And so that's the other reason for pushing. Every house, I say, is full with about 8 children. That's enough children for, if you have much more than that, you can't give them the time that they need. And so this new house will be able to accommodate 8 children. Obviously, we'll put a couple extra beds in there in case we need them from time to time. But it won't go short. Last week, I was at another camp. I go to a camp in right outside of Jasper with the Apologetic Express group. And while there, I got a call for 3 children. They were 10 months old, 2 years old, and 5 years old. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any place that I can put them. If for no other reason, those 3 ages together, that's a full house all by itself. But the need is always going to be there. There's been a time or two since I've been at Pinevale that children have left in, they come to us in bunches a lot of times, and they leave in bunches. By that I mean they call us with, like in that case, 3 children. They've got 3 children or 4 children or 5 children that they need to place, and you can't do that in just a standard home a lot of times, and so they call Pinevale to see if we can accommodate the larger groups, which means when that group leaves, they usually all leave together. And so we may get 5 at one time, we may lose 5 at one time. And then you look at my numbers, and that 19 is now 14, and it's like, well, what's Pinevale doing without just 14 children? That doesn't seem like they're fulfilling their goal. But I never worry that there won't be more children right around the corner. Every week, I think we've started trying to keep up with how many we turn away, and we kind of came up with an average of about 5 a week. Now, once again, that's a little number. I can do anything I want to with numbers, but that might be a little misleading because we'll have rushes. In other words, usually when school starts back and teachers begin to notice neglect and abuse, I start getting a lot of phone calls, and so I may turn away. I may get a phone call a day for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I may go 2 or 3 weeks without a phone call at all. I didn't this past week. I didn't receive a single phone call for a child while I was back. So, but on average, about 5 children a week. Now, this house that we're talking about building, I told you will only accommodate about 8 children before we'll call it full, which means that by building another house, we're not going to alleviate the problem. We're still going to receive calls of children that we're not going to be able to help. But I don't think it's about being able to help all the children. It's about being able to do all that I can with what I have. And what I have is one of the greatest resources in all of the world, and that's I have the Lord's church. I keep emphasizing we are a work of the church. There are only 3 children's homes left in the state of Mississippi like what we are, a non-therapeutic group home. Each one of those is associated in some way or another, some more loosely than others, with the Lord's church. If it hadn't been for the Lord's church and the support of the Lord's church, all three of them would have shut down by now. They can't sustain themselves, even with a contract with the state, on what's received. We look for grants all the time, and I think we've got a $500 a year grant that comes from somebody, and maybe another $200 a year. What do you do with $1,000 a year in grants like that? And so there's not a lot out there for the type of work that we do. What there is, though, is the Lord's church. And I would say probably 2/3 or better of the support that we receive and that we need to operate on either comes from the congregation of the Lord's church or it comes from individuals who donate above and beyond their weekly contribution to Pinevale. I see a lot of those checks that come through that have Boonville addresses on them. And so you, I know, are a large part, both as a congregation and individually, of the work that goes on at Pinevale. Just so happens that Prentiss County happens to be my favorite court and social worker group to work with. Just kind of coincidental. But they are probably the easiest and best to work with. And so when they call, I'm much quicker to take a child from there than I am from some of the other counties. But that's not to say they're without issues or problems, or that the others are outside of the help that we're not going to help the others. But this area is very much a reason why Pinevale is around. Yes, ma'am. I know what question you're going to ask. I don't need. Yes, ma'am. How many children are going back to their parents? And there's not an easy answer for that because every case is different. Some will. In fact, the primary objective when any child is taken, and I hate to even use the word taken, when a child comes into the care of the state, no, I don't know that I've had a single one that came in that the first plan for the social worker was not reunification. In other words, that's the first thing they want is for that child to go back to their parents. And they work for that. Now, the children that we have, most of them, matter of fact, I don't think I think everyone I can say right now is with us not because of a fault of the child. In other words, it was the child didn't do anything to cause that child to come into care. There was something that happened with the family. Typically, it's neglect or abuse, and abuse has a large range of criteria as well as neglect. They both have a large range of criteria. So sometimes it may seem the family may not even recognize what they did as neglect or abuse. To them, it may just be normal. And that's part of what has to happen with the family is they have to realize that behavior is not normal. It's not acceptable behavior to care for a child. You realize that a human child, and I'm not compared to the other creatures in nature, that a human child is more dependent upon its parents for a longer amount of time than I guess just about any creature that God created. Now there are some who stay with their parents for their entire life. I think I read something about an orca whale that when the mother dies, the son usually dies within 12 months of it or something. I don't know how they figure that out, but they do. But normally, you can sit there and the birds will build a little nest in your porch, and you'll go out there one day and there'll be eggs in it. You'll go out there a couple of weeks later and those eggs will have hatched and they'll look helpless, and the mama's bringing them food, and a few weeks later those little birds are out flying around the nest, and then a few weeks later, those birds are gone. And it may be that the next year, that it's those same little baby birds that are back at that same nest laying eggs themselves. That doesn't happen with our children, does it? They're with us. When born, not only do you have to feed them, you have to do everything for them. You take an infant newborn and lay it, out somewhere, it won't survive. It has no instincts even to help it get up and run. A baby deer, how long does it take before a baby deer can get up and run? Almost the same day, in most cases. Those things, that's the way God created them. Well, God created the child dependent upon the parent. And in that dependency, that parent not only brings them up physically, but they bring them up mentally, and they bring them up emotionally, and they bring them up socially, and most importantly, I hope they bring them up spiritually. Now, while the court's not necessarily interested in how they bring them up spiritually, I believe this world has gotten away from raising their children spiritually, and that's the reason that all the other things fall to the wayside as well. Because if they're not concerned with their soul, they're not too concerned with their body either, or their mind, or anything else to do with them. So, now, back I guess to your original question, how many? I can't put a number on that. They're all different, but that is the first plan. I have quite a few right now that I know will not make that transition back to family. When that's not going to happen, the child's next plan usually is placement with a relative, and that doesn't happen very often, but occasionally. And then if that's not available, then the court, because the child doesn't need to stay in foster care for the duration of their childhood, will move to terminate the parent's rights and find an adoptive placement for that child. Now, that adoptive placement with children who come through Pinevale is going to be different than my adoptive placement. I was adopted basically at birth. I was that cute little baby boy. I know y'all think, well, what happened? But that's what most people, when they think of adopting, that's what they're thinking. I'm going to get a cute little baby, and it's going to be perfect, and I'm going to raise it the way it needs to be raised. The children who come through Pinevale, though most of them are cute, they're not little babies anymore. And so the placements for them is you're going to try to raise them as your own, but you're not a replacement for the family they had. You're an addition to that family. And sometimes that's hard to find people who want to make that commitment to be not a replacement, to be an addition. And to love that child in the way they are, and to understand the culture they came from and the lifestyle that they lived prior to this, and to help them continue in that. To help them to continue to have a connection with that family, because that family is still there. It's still just as real. It's still just as much a part of that child as any family could be. And that child will still love that family and should. It's their family. And so finding those people who are willing to accept that place and that commitment to that child is difficult. But it's something and it's something I find in short supply in the Lord's church. And something I encourage every one of you to consider. Could I be that someone? Could I be that someone who will take a child who needs a support system and needs someone to help them and to know that they're there, even when the child's maybe a little leery. And the child may have a few issues that I don't want to deal with, to understand that's who that child is and to love that child that way. Yes, sir.
Any organized effort being made to share the gospel with parents and children?
No, sir, not adequately. Obviously, the children are exposed to the gospel and to the Lord's church from the time they get there. Being, the house parents members, active members, they're involved in the congregations. You know that from the house parents that attend here. And the parents are, there is a, how can I put this? There is a push within the Child Protective Services for providers, Pinevale, to be more involved with the parents of the children. In other words, to work with them, to help them be more stable. Sometimes I frame it with they want us to do what the social worker is supposed to have been doing. But that's about what it boils down to. They want us to counsel with the family, to have them, the family and the children together, and to help them maintain their bond and work through their issues so that when they go back, the family is more stable. Being a work of the church, and that being clear up front at the beginning of the placement, then that would, as we progress into that arena, something that would be offered to the family is a discussion of that, even from the standpoint of, I want to discuss with you the culture of the church that your child is being exposed to. While the state of Mississippi is not, in fact, it may be one of the best states right now to not meddle in works of the church like Pinevale, that is always a concern that the more we push that way, the more families complain this way, and the more they complain this way, the more this comes down on us. And so it will be something as we open up that service to the families that will definitely be a part of. I want you to know this is why we're here. We're here because the church makes it possible. This is what your child is being exposed to, and we'd like to expose you to it so that you know more about it. That's probably about as far as we can push the issue without causing undue focus on ourselves. There are children's homes associated with the Lord's church, particularly in Kentucky. I know of a couple that the state has become so involved in the religious aspect of those homes and what is allowed to be done for the children or with the children that they have had to completely shut down taking any children from the state and have had to retool and reopen as only private placement foster homes or group homes, that with the understanding that they're only supported by the church, and they can do with it what they let them know. This is what we're going to do with this child if you place them here, and then it's the parents' consent to do those things. And it's one thing to ask a child to come to a religious service and be respectful. Another thing to say, you're going to have to participate and do these things. And so, we try to be wise as serpents, gentle as doves, when we approach all of that. Did I dance all around your question, or did I kind of answer it? Yes, ma'am. Well, first thing we do is we put a shock collar around their neck, and it's when they first come in, they are scared and worried and completely, shaken, mad, sad. They're going through an entire whirlwind of emotions. They don't know where they are, who you are, why I'm here. They just and they've just been told that what they were used to, their normal, is not normal, and you can't be with your parents, and you're not going to see them again for a week or two, and these people you're going to have to listen to and obey. Oh, and by the way, all that what we would call chaos that you lived in, that's gone because you're in a group home now, and you have to abide by these rules. You have to get up at this time. You have to shower at this time. You have to eat at this time. You have to go to bed at this time. You're going to have to keep, a child that may have only had 3 outfits is now going to have a closet full of clothes that they have to maintain and keep in order, and and your behavior is going to have to improve, and you're going to have to stop using those words, those extra adjectives that was an everyday occurrence in their house, but that we don't use those here. It's a whole gamut of overwhelmingness, and so we've tried to bring them in slowly and introduce them to their house mates and show them their room, go over a few of the basic rules, go over an understanding that if you have an issue with something that goes on there, you have an outlet. One of the difficult things for a child for all of us, is a feeling of helplessness. I am just complete, and you've made this child who was probably very independent before they came. Now they have to do this, and they feel helpless. What am I don't know what to do. My hands are tied, and when you do that, then the only thing the child knows to do is to misbehave. Well, then they get in more trouble, and now they feel more helpless, and you start a cycle. So, one of the things we stress is that you always have an outlet. There's 3 people you can always talk to. You can always talk to your social worker. You can always talk to your therapist. And I think I see Miss Sheila Beatty back there in the back, our therapist at Pinevale for all the children. And you can always come to me. So I try to be there when they come in to the house and go over the rules. So you can always come to me, and you can always come to us without fear of repercussions. If you have a grievance, you write it down, you can seal it, it can get to me, I can call you, we can sit, we can talk, and we can figure out, is this something that's a problem? And that seems to help somewhat, making sure that they know that that they can have that outlet, that they can have that connection, they can have that support, and that they're not just helpless in this situation with these people that they've never met before, and we don't know what's going to go on. And then all of my house parents are very parently. They baby them a little bit. They try to comfort them. We give them, we make sure they understand how comfortable they are, how accessible they are, and we're also, while we have these rules in place, we understand that this child's never seen these, and so we're also very forgiving and try to stress that we want to discipline the child, not just punish the child when they break the rules. We want you to know why these rules are in place, what good they provide, and why you need to follow along. So, and so then we just try to introduce them to our normal, which is sometimes chaos too. But we at least like to think it's structure, and once the children really learn that structure, some thrive in it, some never do. And Pinevale is not the place for every child. We try to be aware of that. We think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's not the environment for every child. And so sometimes that child then will have to move on to another placement because just couldn't quite make the adjustment. That kind of answer it. Yes, ma'am. The school system works real well with us. Kossuth is where all of them go. It's obviously a smaller county school area. We can, I used to be able to hit a 5-iron between each door. I don't know if I could. Might need a driver now. It's been a while, but I mean they're all right there. Miss Sheila has free reign for the most part to go and take the children out and talk to them when she needs to. They all know. They all have my cell phone number. If there's an issue, they can call directly to me. And they understand that these children have come from, and are willing to work with us and work with the child. So I'm very appreciative of the Kossuth school system. Yes, sir. Steve, what are you doing here? Well, I knew you were going to. I didn't know you were here yet. It's good to see you. Yes, sir, we do use relief house parents. In fact, with the thought of an addition of a fourth house particular, we are looking to, I'll say, put in place a permanent house parent, relief house parent. They won't be somebody who lives on campus. They'll have to live elsewhere, and they'll come in during those relief times. We've, for the last, well, I don't know, I guess Tommy started it, so I'm going to blame everything on Tommy. That's what the former directors are for, right? It was all his fault. I just inherited it. Our relief time has worked, though I describe it as willy-nilly. In other words, if you need time off, you come and tell me when you need time off. I try to find somebody else who's off during that time that can come and fill your spot. Or, bless her heart, my wife goes down to your house and she takes care of it. By the way, this is my wife up here. I found out the other day that not everybody knows who she is. Raise your hand. Wait, there she. Okay. And I have my in-laws with me this morning and some other friends and family, and I'm blessed to have a good support system that way. But that even with that, the addition of that permanent house parent or permanent relief person, they won't always be able to come when I need them to, and so I'm always looking for people who can come and fill those roles and help. Sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's 5 days. I've got I believe most people here have met the Moores, my newest set of house parents, and they left last Monday, and they won't be back till next Thursday. But they had to go visit relatives in Oregon, so they needed a little more time off. I need that. Sometimes it's longer stretches, and you do what you can do. If you tell me, if I call you and say, hey, I need a house relief for 9 days, and you say, well, I can come for 5 of those, I'll find somebody for the other 4. You had an addition. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The preachers. I think I see the question. I tell you that the least amount of time that a child will be at Pinevale, I would typically say is 6 months. That's because that's usually the time frame that it takes to get from the first court hearing to the next court hearing. I have had children that have been with us for 4 years or better since I've been there. Obviously, they were there before I got there if they were there for 4 years or better. And I got some that are coming up on about 4 years. And when they leave us, they will have been exposed to the Lord's church for that time. If they've been with us that long, that means they have accepted the structure that we have provided, and they have, thrive might be a strong word. They have grown in that, and they see the good that it does. In fact, sometimes I have issues with them because they try to help the newer children to understand. You've got to do this, and if you'll do this, things will go so much better and so much smoother and be so great. Once they leave us, then it's kind of like our own children. All bets are off. I know of one young man that is a deacon over in Thyatira right now. I know a few others that have been influenced and have remained faithful. I've got a few right now that tease me with the idea of becoming preachers. the overall percentage of children who leave Pinevale, even having been baptized and being fully exposed to the Lord's church and that remain faithful, is probably pretty low. I don't know. I don't chart that, so can't give you an actual percentage, but it's probably pretty low. If I think about that too long, I could get upset. I could get a little down. I could feel a little disheartened that is what I'm doing any good at all. But then I read where Jesus said, "You saw me hungry and you gave me food. You saw me thirsty, you gave me something to drink. You saw me sick or without clothes, and you saw to my needs." But nowhere in that passage do I ever read that you did that and I became a faithful Christian and lived for the Lord the rest of my life. And so I see, while I hope and my prayer and my desire and my worry and my fear is all wrapped up in whether these children's souls will go to heaven. Part of the reason we do what we do is because we want to shed light of the Lord. He said, when you do these good works so that men will see them and they'll glorify your Father in heaven. And so we've influenced these children. These children's parents know, even if we've not sat down and opened a Bible with them, they know that we're there because we're a work of the Lord's church. They know, the social workers that bring them to us know that we're a work of the Lord's church. The school system that we take these children to know we're a work of the Lord's church. The court systems that we go and sit in the courtrooms with the judges and the lawyers, they know we're a work of the Lord's church. The community people who participate with us on a regular basis know we're a work of the Lord's church. The community at large, for the most part, knows we're a work of the Lord's church. And so I try to focus on those things, that what we do is bringing glory and honor to Him, and pray and hope that it influences these children's soul for all eternity. So, yes, sir.
Could you talk a minute about how big a house, how much money you need?
I need a house about this big and a pot of gold about this big. The estimation, and I'm still waiting on my plans to come back to know exactly how big I drew this house. The house that will house these children will be about 5,000 to 5,500 square feet. We'll have, I think, 8 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. So I'm always looking for somebody that likes to scrub bathrooms. It will be built with a little bit more capacity and consideration for the house parents to have kind of a more separate quarters, because when that relief comes in, it can be kind of awkward for the house parent to be there while the relief people are there. And at our best projection, this house is going to cost somewhere around $350,000. Now, of that, I would say we're scarily close to half. And so you've only got to come up with half of that today. I told the Golden Circle came and cooked for us this past Tuesday, great lunch for us. And I told some of them there today that the good news was that we had all the money that we needed to build this house and to continue the work of the Lord's church there at Pinevale. The only problem was that it was still in your wallets. And so we're moving rapidly right now with our fundraising. These special Sunday givings are a big part of that. And it wouldn't surprise me if today that we are far enough ahead that we'll start submitting plans to the state. And once those plans are approved, we'll start breaking ground, and we'll be moving forward as the budget allows us to have this house up and running. My goal, my personal goal, and it may be ambitious, is to have that house finished by the end of next summer, so that when school starts back, we're ready to put children into it, because that's when we'll start getting our rush of calls. Obviously, that's dependent primarily upon one thing and one thing only, and that is the generosity in your heart. This is a special giving Sunday. It's a special giving because the proceeds from today will help go directly toward the building of that house. We're only doing this because our day-to-day, our month-to-month bills and budget is all being covered well by you and by others already. We are stable and even are able to divert a little bit of the money monthly into the housing fund ourselves. And so we are poised, prime, and ready to build that house as soon as the funds are available. And so we'll find out today. And I'll send out a letter probably in about probably the end of middle of July that will update you on where exactly we are with our fundraising and where we need to be, where we are with our plans, and keep you informed as to what that is. So if y'all decide to have another special Sunday giving, that'll be all right too. What else? Ooh, depends on how good of painters they are. I've had some painters come through that it cost me more after they left than it did before they got there. But yes, ma'am, well, there are already some plans in place for some volunteer laborers to help. A lot of volunteer work was used in the last house that was built, and so that's why I call that $350 our projected price, because it depends on how much volunteer labor we're able to use versus how much we have to contract out, and it may be that we're able to come in a little lower, but with that house we'll also have to furnish it. We'll have each house has 2 vans that go into it, and we'll have to make sure we have the salary of the house parents covered even without children in there. So all that will factors into that projected price to start up a new house. So. I have a couple that or 2 or 3 that have expressed interest, but that's as far as we are right now. I tell you, it may be harder to find the right set of house parents than it is to find the money to build it. That is a constant thing. Who would you get to raise your children? That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for somebody that you would let raise your children that is willing to do that with 8 children that they don't know and that don't like them. That would be just like my children. No. By the way, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Now, there are a few of you here who are very involved in the business world, and I have had individuals in the community that will address their companies or the places that they work, and they have resources there that are able to also provide for Pinevale. While we are a work of the church, we are also a work involved in the community, and so we are a 501c3, and so if your company is of such that they can make donations to Pinevale, we are open and willing to provide whatever you need to make that happen. And so I've had people divert IRAs, I've had people that their company gives to a charitable donation in their name, all kind of different ways that has happened. Just a quick plug since I'm only 2 minutes over. We are very versatile. We've had people donate IRAs to us that if they cashed out, would have cost them more in taxes than just about they would have made. But we're non-profit, so we can cash those out and reap the benefits of that. I've had people leave us property, houses, and vehicles and different things, or give us vehicles that they have. I have several young people right now that are staring at driver's license. Pray for me continually. And And they will need to start driving. I mean, that's part of growing up. They'll be getting jobs to be able to provide for things, but we'll need vehicles for them to drive from time to time. Not new vehicles, something that if they do get in an accident won't break anybody's heart. I've had people that, if anybody ever heard of a place called Amazon, there's this place called Amazon on the internet. If you sign up if you go in and you search Amazon Smile, you can put in Amazon Smile Pinevale, and if you use Amazon Smile when you buy, a percentage of that comes to Pinevale. That's a little small way you can contribute to us. There's just if you have it and you use it, I can use it as well. And we sometimes will sell things that people give to us, and all that money goes into the good for Pinevale. So if you ever have any, I've had people donate hogs to me. In fact, that was some of the best sausage I've ever had. Sausage we processed ourselves, and so we're pretty open to any suggestions you have of any giving that you would like to do. But looks like the little ones are coming in, so I appreciate your attention and your questions.